You're listening to the Goggler Podcast with me, Uma. On the show today, I've got two very special guests, Yuki Pang and Jani Kuronen, the co-producers of the brand new animated feature Fleak. I went over to their offices, Anima Vitae in Kota Damansara, for a conversation about all of the great work that they're doing. Check it out. I am sitting here at Anima Vitae HQ with Yuki and Jani. They are co-producers of a brand new feature called Fleak, which is a co-production between Malaysia, Finland, Poland, and France. But, guys, before we talk about Fleak, and I want to talk about the movie, what I was particularly excited about, because I had no idea the first time I came here, was how much production, animated production, is actually done right here in Malaysia with Malaysian talent, and that kind of blew me away. So, could you talk to that, because I think a lot of people out there like me don't know about it. Why Malaysia? Are we special in any way?
I would say that we're very special. In Malaysia, we have so many different ethnicities, a lot of different backgrounds. We have so much of history, culture within Malaysia itself. We were the melting pot of the world. Because of this diversity, we have a lot of artists who are very creative and technical at the same time. Because I think a lot of times people, when they see animation, they think that it is only artistry, it's only creative. But actually, it's also very challenging in technical sense. With the education background, I know we have a lot of things to say about education, but because of how our environment nurtured us, we are able to create a very, very diverse and talents, both creative and technically. And I would say that Finland is a country that is very technical.
Well, we are nerds.
I like that.
We are also nerds, Malaysians. I would say that we are exposed with the Hollywood culture. We are exposed with the Japanese culture back in the 90s. We have the Korean wave that came in during the early 2000s. So we are very interested in films in general. Mm-hmm. I think most of us, we grew up watching theater. So with that environment, I'm really, really happy to see how much our artists, our company has grown for the past 15 years, I would say.
Is it safe to say that the skill level of the animators in the country, out of our local universities even, are of, like, you're happy?
Yeah, I would say that we are of really, really good level.
That's really good to know. That's refreshing.
Yep. Mm-hmm. I would say that there's one challenge, of course.
What is the challenge?
The challenge is to encourage people to ask questions. And I am very happy to see how our employees have started to ask questions. They start to have curiosity. So that's why we always emphasize on be curious.
But I think that's the cool thing about what you guys do, right? Because they're not just in an isolated environment. Yeah. They're working with people in Finland.
Yes.
So that joint effort means that there's exposure that they wouldn't ordinarily get.
Yes. It's not just Finland. They are also exposed to working with people from Denmark, from UK, from Japan, from China. So they are exposed with people from different countries all over the world.
Fleak is your first movie in Malaysian cinemas.
Yes.
Talk to me about some of the other productions, because I think a while ago, I may have seen the Moomin one.
Yes.
Only because my wife and I are huge fans of Moomin.
Wonderful
of the
to hear
books.
that.
Yeah, exactly.
I would say that you're one of the minority who knows about Moomins, because actually not many people know about Moomin.
Moomin is huge in Japan, and
yes.
people like the cute
90%.
Yes,
over
the stuffed toys and
Moomin.
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they like and I think Kunia has a lot of these notebooks and all of this stuff, and I think that's the only exposure people have to Moomin.
Yes.
But actually, the stories in the book are fantastic.
Yes, and the reason why it's so fantastic Well, Kura will elaborate more, but what is fantastic with Moomins, the comics, the storybook, it entertains all three different generations. The young ones will be having fun with how I would say is they will be interested in the lightness of the story and the humor, whereas the older generation could see what are the generational humor in it,
Yeah.
which is really, really fantastic how they do the storytelling.
Yeah, they are quite deep stories, to be honest. The original books were and comics were like even more deeper and had pretty controversial material as well. But obviously in the series it has been toned down and so on, but still retaining the kind of a deep stories that the older generations can enjoy as well.
Yeah. What were some of the other productions that you guys have had cinematically for features, which weren't released in Malaysia, obviously?
Actually, both of them is with Norwegian producers.
Right.
So one is Rufus. So Rufus, it is a story about this teenage boy who is a sea serpent, loosely based on what is that mythology? Loch Ness Monster, whereas the other one, it's called North. It is about a story that we are very, very familiar with, which is the Snow Queen.
Right.
The story from Hans Andersen.
Yeah,
Is it?
hardcore.
The name?
Sorry, H.C. Andersen.
Because all his original stories were pretty hardcore.
Very hardcore.
They are, and because they are still made, so they have to be pretty hardcore.
Yep.
Stories and absolutely fantastic, and they've been redone and interpreted in different ways. And let's say Frozen was, for example,
Correct.
some distant relative of that story
Yep.
as well, but
A toned down version.
toned down and distant relative of that fairy tale that of Andersen's. But North is quite exactly it even the time era is even the Victorian era.
Yeah.
And it faithfully captures the original story.
So what made you decide to finally release something in Malaysian cinemas? Like, why Fleak?
I remember first time seeing Fleak. It was one of our producer, Auntie Haikala. It is interesting because it is about this imaginary character, imaginary friend that he has created for his boys. He has two boys. When he was a young father, obviously taking care of two boys can be quite handful. So he created Fleak as this character to help to ease the quarrels between two of the boys. So for him, his boys now are in their 20s or late teens. So they're quite old. They don't want to play with him anymore. So he decided to find a new home for Fleak. And that's where he decided to create it into a story. Fleak the movie, even though there is Fleak in there, but the story is more revolving on this boy he is coming of age. He is feeling distance from his siblings. So this is a strong story about siblings, about growing up, having to accept change. That's why this story resonates heavily with me, especially because I'm the youngest in the family. Not only in my own family, but also among all my cousins. So I can understand it heavily, especially when you're at a young age of, for example, 10 or 12, and all your siblings are grown-ups. Me and my siblings, my older sibling is 13 years older than me, and my younger sibling, who is 6 years older than me. So there was a huge gap. So I could see how it felt being left behind and trying to sort of nurture this relationship in the family. So that's why this Fleak the movie, I find that it really resonates heavily to me, but also it will resonate to the Malaysian audience as well.
There is definitely a universal appeal or relatability, like even within the first few minutes of the movie, when Thomas is trying to get his siblings' attention to do stuff with him. I think it's something we can all relate to, right? We all want to be with the cooler sibling, hang out, play with them. Yeah. There were two things that I really liked at the beginning of the film, which I thought you guys did really well. The first was the lead up to the accident. I thought the narrative tension was really good because there were so many things that happened and you're like, is it going to happen now? No. And then when he drives off the cliff, you're like, is it going to happen now? No. And like, so that I like that tension and it kept me going. And then when it finally does hit, you're like, oh shit. And the second thing, which Fleak reminded me of, the older, I think Roald Dahl, Enid, Blyton type stories, where they aren't afraid to go dark. I think Fleak goes some dark places, which is missing from a lot of kids' shows these days. And I think it's important to go to dark places because I think we growing up, I think we learned a lot from experiencing that trauma. Like seeing Bambi's mother die or Land Before Time, Fievel getting lost in American Tail, like all of that really affected us emotionally. And I think not pulling your punches was a good, like I was watching it with my colleague Bahe and like I'm texting him halfway and I'm like, shit, dude, this show is going dark. Like I did not expect some of this stuff. So talk to me about that. Talk to me about not pulling your punches, like not doing what everyone else is doing and trying to tone it down. Like I feel like the current audience these days feels a bit coddled in that sense.
Well, generally, if I may say, that's the purpose of the stories, why we tell stories. The purpose is to prepare us for something when we grow up. So they are kind of shields for all the things that we might encounter in the future life and so on. That's why it's so important. And that's why, well, stories can be very, very different. They can be of love and breaking your heart or some other scary stuff. And you need to be prepared for all of that. And I kind of do see that nowadays, those kind of stories are not told enough. And they are quite, like you said, young kids are not necessarily ready for.
Was there a conscious decision to not have like a big bad? Like there isn't really a villain here. I mean, there are people who do some bad things and there are scary shadows and stuff like that. I don't think there is a Ursula-like villain or a Scar-like villain, right? Was there a conscious decision to not do that and just focus on, I guess, Thomas's internal strife?
We have to ask that from Auntie. But yeah, it's the biggest villain is yourself, obviously.
Yeah, that's what it is in this movie as well.
Yeah, and your own fears. And you need to overcome them and accept who you are.
And I remember during our discussion about the story, we wanted to emphasize that there is no crazy bad person. Everyone has something good. It's just how much you amplify that. I remember in the early days also, I would say our animators, our artists, when they were reading the script, they do also ask questions. For example, initially, the siblings were more written out a little bit more reserved, not involved with Thomas' life. So that's where some of our animators, they voice up, it feels not real because how they would envision siblings is siblings should be helping each other. So that's why we made also a consciousness certain times. When you're growing up, you get distracted with a lot of things. So what we're trying to pepper in is, even though there's distraction, doesn't mean that we do not love.
Yes. But also, I'm sure we've experienced that exact same thing. Like you have siblings who behave completely differently when someone like Jack shows up because suddenly they want to be cool and be like, oh, you little guy, go away, don't get in my way, or I don't crap my style. And I thought that was captured very well. That dynamic between the three of them and Jack. And I don't know if your writer told you where this came from, but where did the beanie thing come from? I thought that was very cute, where they have family meeting and everyone wants to wear the hat. Is that a Finnish thing? Like, or is that just a family thing that they do?
I have a feeling that is something that is coming out from Auntie.
His own life.
Right. Because, like I said, he created Fleak to resolve this together with his boys. So when they have issues, he'll be like, hey guys, okay, family time now.
Family
Let's
meeting. Yeah.
have this discussion. So what's really going on? You say your part, you say your part. Let's resolve it together.
Is the beanie Fleak?
Talk to me about the design of Fleak. I think that's always the hardest thing to get right in any animated film, right? You want to create a creature that is appealing, that is cute,
Yep.
a little bit weird. Like, talk to me about how you came up with that.
In the beginning, he is really looking like a bug from another dimension. And then when we were going through the process, when he first appeared, he's small. But eventually, in the world, he can be as big as your dog. So that's why we try to incorporate the characteristic like a dog and also like a bug at the same time. And I remember actually Fleak had 6 legs. And then eventually I think we decided to remove it to 4 legs instead. Whereas Morphe has 3 legs.
Okay, I'm always curious about this. In the process,
Yeah.
why that decision? Like, why did you go, 6 legs is not working, let's do 4? Was there like a particular reason for that?
We did have a test and then we have it with 6 legs, and later on we realized that it becomes quite complicated because it's sort of like, okay, you have to think about how the legs work. Should it be like an insect? And then if we go to the insect route, it might create this fear. Because we do have, of course, we have kids who love insects, but we also have kids who doesn't like insects. So that's why we made a conscious decision, and I think that's why we decide to have it as a 4-legged. And when you have 4-legged, when you think about how the movement of the legs, it makes sense.
And everyone loves dogs. So I guess it's easier when it's relatable like a pet as opposed to... And Thomas kind of treats him like a pet throughout the film, which is very cool. With the climax of the movie, right? And you have, I guess, a monster movie climax. I guess you can call it that.
Yes.
Which is also very cool because I didn't know where that was going and I wasn't sure how you were going to end it. And I quite like that you went to that old school raw kind of thing, which is very nice. Can you talk to me about that arc? Because I think when you're watching the movie, that's not where you're expecting it to go.
At a very early stage, we have been exploring what would be the monster be. One thing we knew from a very early stage is we want the monster to be scary but funny at the same time.
Right.
So that's why we came out with the idea that this monster will be, every time it eats, it grows bigger and bigger because we want the monster to not feel too scary. But of course, in the end, at the climax, the monster became really big, and then that's where we can be going all scary. But in the beginning, because we also remember this is a family, kids-friendly show, we try to think from the kids' perspective, and that's why we did this decision that, okay, in the beginning, we have to make him funny.
I thought it was pretty scary, but in a good way. Like, I like being scared by things like that, and it felt scary in that Gremlins way. Because like when he shows up and then suddenly he eats the cat and then he starts becoming bigger and bigger, it felt very Gremlins with them suddenly turning, right? And I thought that was good because yet again, I think kids like to be scared. Like I know as a kid, I wanted to be scared. It was a cool feeling.
And then we also made it as a conscious that, yes, the monster eats it, but doesn't kill it.
Of course.
Yes.
Yeah, you can't kill a cat.
You cannot kill a cat.
You cannot kill a cat. No, that would really traumatize the kids, right? What age group do you think the movie works for? When I was watching it, I mean, the messaging is obviously universal. And I think everyone has something to learn from a movie like this. But I was thinking it probably hit hardest for kids who are 8, 9, 10, like still figuring out the world, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Was that the target audience you had in mind when you were making this?
Yes. It is too scary for kids that is under 4.
Do you think so? Did you test it?
We had a screening test.
Right.
And some of our colleagues brought their kids.
So
we noticed that the 4 years,
scary?
when the cat became bigger and bigger, that's the part where they scream the loudest.
Oh, wow. Oh, no, but that's the reaction you're hoping for, right? No, I think that's important. I think sometimes even as film critics in our 40s, sometimes we have to constantly remind ourselves to remember what it was like watching this kind of movie at that age.
Yes.
And we forget that that is the reaction we're going for. Because we're so jaded. We've seen hundreds of movies, right? After a while, it takes a lot to make us scared. But that's great. I love that. Yeah.
And also, we have to remember when growing up, we watched a lot of adult movies.
Yeah, dude. The kind of VHS tapes our parents would get for us.
Watching Star Wars at age 7.
And I think that's what I appreciate about Fleak is that it doesn't pull its punches. It goes to some dark places. I mean, I was watching Hoppers recently, the new Pixar film. And it's same. I thought Hoppers was unique because it went to some dark places, which a Pixar movie hasn't done in a long time also. And I found that very surprising. And I think these are the kinds of movies I would like parents to take their kids to watch because I think they actually learn something. When I was growing up, when I was reading those Roald Dahl books, like the kids would have traumatic experiences. Like in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, we never heard from that fat kid ever again.
Come on. Those are horror stories.
I know, they're great, right? I think there's some real value here, which is very, very cool. What do you guys have? Like, I'm sure there's stuff in the pipeline. I know you guys do a lot of work for other production houses, right? Because you're also an animation production house. But for your own stuff, do you have other movies in the pipeline? Are you working on anything at the moment that you can talk about?
We have several projects all the time, like in development.
How long does that usually take? Is it the same as like it's 3 to 5 years in a Pixar, Disney type thing, but you're a smaller production house?
Well,
does it take as longer?
The actually 3 and 5 years is a quite heavy understatement for those. Like when we did like our first movie, it took 4 years from the beginning to the end. And that was considered like super fast because everything went so well, and so everyone was surprised of that. But normally it can take like 10 years even.
Wow. Yeah.
Because like the first part is that the story needs kind of a development time and it needs to mature and rewritten and so on. You need to have a time off from the story in order to see it with a fresh pair of eyes.
Yeah.
We are developing like multiple all the time because they just take so long time to actually do. So we hope that we can get like every second year our own IP out. That doesn't necessarily happen, but it's the fastest pace that we can kind of manage.
Oh, tell me this before I let you go. Another curiosity I'm always asking myself when I watch movies like this. You release the movies in multiple countries, and of course it's in different languages. Can you talk to me about the dubbing process and how that works? Like, do you cast voice actors for every area that you have a wide release for? Like in France, for example, how do you cast your French actors versus English actors?
Yeah, in case of France, for example, in Fleak, that's the co-producers' territory. And in the countries that are interesting, we do the casting, but normally the casting for some minor countries are obviously done by the distributor, and it's.
Is there a part you play after the dubbing happens in that? Do you resync the lips at all, or no? Do you leave that to the voice actors? Because in live action, the voice actors have to do their best to kind of match up, right? Yeah. So how does it work in animation?
That is true also in animation and has been, but that one is shifting like right now, as we speak. That depending on the size of the market, you could actually redo the lip syncs.
Oh wow!
With the new technology.
Right, yes, of course. Oh no, that's very cool. Because I was reading this, side note, completely unrelated. I was reading this book on how they made the X-Men animated series in the 90s. And they were talking about how, because they sent everything over to Japan to animate. But the Japanese didn't know how English people's lips move. And so they had to record and show them how they pronounce English words so that they could, it was nuts. Like back then, the kind of crazy things they used to do. So that's cool. With new technology, obviously, I mean, they're using, like there was a movie called The Fall that came out. And I remember they didn't want an R rating in the US. And so they used AI to change their lip movements to change the cursing. So whenever they said the F word, they would change it. And I was like, that's wild. But yeah, you can do all of that now. So
Yes.
yeah, that's
That is
cool.
an example of a good use of AI.
Correct. Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah. Because after you spend 10 years making a movie,
Yep.
you're not going to be like, listen, you want me to change that guy's lips now? Yeah. No. Thank you so much. Congratulations on the film. We will encourage people to go and watch it. And we can't wait for the next one. So thank you for your time.
Thank you for
Thank
having
you for
us.
having us.
That was Yuki and Jani. They are the co-producers of the brand new animated feature Fleak. It opens in Malaysian cinemas this Thursday. Check it out. Let us know what you think. You know how to reach out. We're on Instagram on GogglerMY. You can also email us on podcast@goggler.my or send us a WhatsApp on the Goggler hotline 012-524-5208. Thank you so much for listening. This is the Goggler Podcast.